So actually, when I was in high school and in college, the sisters did an event similar to this, or similar to Pizza and Praise. They called it. It was on a Thursday night, and it was a time of just coming for dinner and a little talk, and then you got to go have adoration with the Lord. And so that was something that I had already attended throughout high school a little bit, but more in college. And I think what I really loved about it was I knew that I could come and just be fed, fed with fellowship, fed with time with the Lord, fed with Jesus. And I could come be among these really joyful women who just were excited to see me. Like that, there was such an invitation or a spirit of welcome that I experienced among the sisters that kept drawing me to like pack up my whole household I was up at Michigan State in Lansing. And so I'd be like, you guys, it's Thursday. We gotta go see it, and they they were really good sports. They would come all down with me. But it was just a really nice, it was so, there's a lot of college where it can really feel like an oasis at times, or you can feel disconnected from just moments of quiet with the Lord. And so I found myself so hungry for that, and I found that my heart really could just be at rest, if you will, and just feel really cared for by the Lord in our chapel. And so when I started to visit the sisters later on, when I was actually in a place of real discernment, I remember coming into our chapel and just knowing that like the Lord is present in all tabernacles, no mystery, and in all places, but he was very particularly present to me in our chapel. And so this video, I liked the idea of having us just say, this is the heart of our life, and what a privilege it is that we get to stand before the Lord many, many, many times a day, but first and foremost, just to be with him, and to worship him, and to know of his love for us. But that's, it's the wellspring, and it's also the source and summit. So it's kind of, it's our lifeblood, if you will. So it was neat to be able to kind of have that be your first glimpse too, in this little video of ours. Yeah.
I love it because, of course, with COVID, we're not able to have visitors. We're not able to have women come over with quite the same opportunity. So it's a neat experience that this video was made possible during COVID, so that it can give a look into our life that someone might get if they were to visit us. So yeah, thank you for that. I love that articulation of the experience of how it was for you. And I love that your whole household came from.
They were such good
Michigan
sports.
State.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Yeah. I even had some Protestants in the house, and I was like, guys, let's go. And they're like, oh, okay. Okay. Our friends are so merciful to us, aren't they? Like as we, as we discover the Lord and fall more in love with him just in our own lives, the grace pours out onto them as well, but they're also willing to go with you when you get a little bit of crazy or a little too tired or whatever, so.
What are friends for?
They're just wonderful.
So, in the video, there is a picture of you at one point in the school science lab where you teach, and there's this giant fireball that appears to be exploding out of someone's hand. So that's exciting. Maybe you could tell us a little of the science, just nerd it up for a minute for us and tell us what's going on. And then the more to the point question is, how are these realities for you? How does it work? How does it work together that you're a sister and you're a science teacher, which is not necessarily the most common combination?
Yeah. So Teresa and Becca and Margaret, I'm looking at you to see if you can actually remember the science behind this demonstration. For those of the rest of you, I've gotten to teach these three women before, and
there will be a quiz at the end of the video.
Yeah. But I think what I really love about teaching science is that you really can blow things up and call it a learning experience. But I really love what I fell in love with is I loved being challenged and stretched, and I loved kind of discovering the Lord's creation, discovering kind of the fundamental truths that really operate, that cause the world to be able to be in operation. I found that a really marvelous thing. And I love that the Lord has invited us to get to know him through his creation. And so it's really a privilege for me to be able to kind of help students climb up enough of a mountain so that they can actually stand and look across the vista and start start to understand my students. I hope they would say the same thing at the end of the day on a Friday, but yeah, here we go. In terms of how do they relate together, science and being a religious sister, that's an interesting question, because when I was at in my undergrad, I was studying chemistry, and I was ready to go off into a research PhD program. I was ready to go off on a different path, and it was really a path that people had kind of really stroked my ego on a bit. If I'm really honest, they said, "Hey, you're pretty good at this. Like you should keep going. You can use your skill sets in that way." And I thought, wow, okay, I can do that. And really was taking a lot of my worth out of my sense of ability, or out of my grade point average. And this sense of, you can challenge me and I'll try and rise to it. And it was in a prayer time. I wasn't even really attending to the prayer time very well, but it was in a prayer time where I really felt like the Lord was asking me to look down that path that I was headed down, the one that I had kind of set before myself, and really just said, will the desires that I've placed in your heart be fulfilled there? And it came with a lot of peace. It wasn't earth shattering, if you will, but there was grace to really ask the question, and grace to really see that the group that I was planning to join or be a part of for this research group were really antagonistic towards the church, or really antagonist towards Christian, to living a discipleship life. And it was a moment for me to really see, while this is a good, it was not the greatest good that the Lord was calling me to. And that I had to let it go and say, you're right. My hopes and my dreams are not here. I was also at the point in my college career, I don't know if any of you are at this moment, that I was like, I actually don't have time to figure out anything else. I'm not sleeping a lot. I have really sacrificed many things in order to do as well as I possibly can. So Lord, I need you to provide what your plan is. And he really responded. But it was something to come to the end of my college career, to really grow up, to be growing in understanding of the Lord's invitation to me to totally do an about face and leave the science fields behind, maybe forever. And to say, Lord, is this a waste? Did I do all of this work for nothing? And was it just my will that said, I'm going to get the greatest grade point that I can, and I'm just going to push as far and as hard as I can? Was that all me? And you won't do anything? Are you asking me just to let it all go forever? And that was really costly. That was really, talk about like the nard in the ointment in the jar. I felt like that. I felt like a Mary of Bethany in that regard of all that I had worked towards. And I felt like, and the Lord was just saying, I want you to give it to me and trust me, that I love you so much more than you can believe right now. So when I was getting ready to join the community, I just really surrendered it and just said, okay, if it's not chemistry, if it's not teaching, if it's not whatever, I really trust that that you are a loving Father, and that it's not a waste, even if I can't see how you're going to use it. And so it was really a profound grace to release it, because there was a lot of like I said, my heart and my mind and my identity was wrapped up in this, to a degree where I really couldn't hear who the Lord was saying that I was. I couldn't hear his voice because of all the kind of stuff I had put around me. So it was really a loving kind of mercy on his part. And then when I made my first vows, the sisters said, my superior said, we'd really love for you to go and get your master's of ed so that you can teach chemistry at the high school level. I was like, really? But what was really beautiful was that I wasn't who I was before. And when I was going back to school, I wasn't there to prove that I was valuable. I was there because the Lord was giving me a mission. He was putting me into relationship with these other people in the program with me. And I knew where I was going, and I knew that the Lord was really guiding me through it, because he had really built up so much in me and taken out so many of the lies and so many of the wounds that had kind of stilted my vision before. So I think really the way that I put religious life and teaching science together is that it's really an incredible privilege to be able to work with as many young people as I get to work with, and I get to know their stories, and I can walk along with them and be an intercessor for them, and build up this kind of sense of awe of how good the Lord is, and that there is always more. I think that's something that's really beautiful about science, is that there's always more, and that can be frustrating, but it's also something that's true of the Lord, is there's always more that he has to give to us, so I think the two things really kind of speak of the same reality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. I've heard her story many times, believe it or not, and I love hearing it every single time. It's really so profound, the way that the Lord both equipped you, like gave you this clear gift, this gifting for science, a gifting for teaching. And then it was like an Isaac that you laid on the altar, and then he returned it to you. And especially, I haven't really heard you say before, this was for you guys, that the Lord inspired you to say it this way, that you weren't the same person when it was given back. And that's a really profound reality, that he had softened your heart and prepared you for what this mission was and how to hold it in proportion to his will.
Yeah. And there was such a clear understanding, like it in your heart of, like, Mr. Dave Mangan says, it in your knower. Like I just knew that the Lord was saying, we're not doing it your way this time. We're doing it in my way and my time. And that was actually a profound, I could hear that as the Lord's love for me. And I could hear that as a real grace for me in a way that I never would have been able to hear before, to say, like, my way is so broken and so kind of like limited, so yeah, it's a real gift from the Lord, so
it's beautiful. Okay, one last question before you get to ask the questions, which ends up being the most exciting part of the night. So, it's always fun to hear from the audience. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But one last question that's prepared. In the video, you say, I love this interplay. So, side note, behind the scenes note, Sister Laura and I have been teamed up to share our testimonies before at Vocations events enough times that we were like, there's kind of this interesting play that we have, like, in our very different roads, our different experiences of family life, our different experiences of our own, like, approach to religious life and how the Lord revealed himself to us, that it makes it really fun to do together, because you're like, and then the Lord, drew me one bit at a time, and I'm like, and then he showed up, and one day, and then I'm there, It's the Lord comes to us precisely as it's very much tailored to our relationship with him and our capacity of what is a love language for us, what is our spirituality. So anyways, that's kind of a fun side note. So I love the way that Clara, who did our video, put them especially in contrast, this moment where you say, I'll try it for 1 year. Yeah. So can you, I guess 2 questions. Can you explain, maybe for anyone who doesn't realize that's even an option, that you would try something for 1 year, that entering isn't actually signing on the dotted line, so to speak. And then maybe anything else that you would want to say to women in discernment that obviously comes from having entered and stayed.
Okay. Yeah. So the funny thing is that Sister Rachel and I really have known each other for a long time. And so we had a summer job at the same business at some point in college. Yeah. I was in college and she was working full time. So it was a summer position. And so we were working in the same office, and we really grew in our relationship and our friendship at that point. And then the next summer I was in this internship for this research program, and I got in touch with Rachel at the time. And I said, hey, I'm coming back into town soon. I'd love to get together for coffee with you. I'd love to catch up with you, that sort of thing. And she goes, I would love to, but I can't. I'm joining the Servants of God's Love. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so great for you. I'll pray for you. Wow. And I was like, I was not in that moment. I was not in that place,
Dodge that a little bit.
but what was really powerful is that the Lord knew what I needed, because I needed someone on the inside. I already knew all the other sisters, but I needed someone that I could ask like the really nitty gritty questions that for whatever reason were really bugging me. So I remember I was just a couple of weeks before I officially asked for entrance. I was just finishing up college. I was not sleeping very much, and all that sort of thing for finals and whatnot. And so Sister Rachel and I were on a discernment retreat. She was there as a speaker. I was there as a retreat. And I was just like, I just need to know. Okay. Like, do I have to wear nylons like every day?
I was like, I had never thought of asking that question before.
And I can't tell you why, but that was like, I needed to know that. And like, I was ready to do it, but I just needed to know. So like,
oh my gosh,
there are like the profound questions of life of like, are you asking me to sacrifice everything that I've hoped and thought and planned in my life? And then there's other things like, how uncomfortable is this really going to be on the daily? Anyways,
what will it take to
the Lord, I think, laughs at us more than we realize. Your question. Oh, yes, thank you. I'll try it for a year. Yeah. So when I grew up in a large Catholic family, with a beautiful witness of marriage and family life. And so I had really always planned and hoped for that for myself. And so throughout high school and throughout college, whenever I prayed about my vocation, I was really just praying that the Lord would just kind of put a check mark next to my plan and say, yeah, that's what I thought too. And it's like, okay, great. I'm glad we talked about it. And so when in high school and in college, he said, no, actually, I want you to be open to whatever it is I have for you. I was like, whoa. But there was grace to receive it, and grace also to know that whatever the Lord had for me, it would come with the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So real peace and real joy. And so in this last year of college, as I was meeting more often with a spiritual director, I was going to mass and praying more. This is when I was asking the Lord, like, okay, what do you have? Because I don't have my plan's done, kind of thing. I really felt like the Lord was just inviting me into a deeper relationship with himself and inviting me to really trust him. And so I just kept saying to people, I was like, I just want to know the Lord more. And I don't want my last theology class to be when I was a senior in high school. Like, I really want to know what the church teaches. I want to be a serious disciple. I want to love and serve the Lord with my whole heart. So I kept saying this to people, and they're like, so it sounds like, have you ever thought about, religious life? And I was like, yes, but that's not what we're talking about right now, but the Lord in his great mercy, just said, I'm inviting you. I'm just inviting you for more of myself. I'm inviting you to try it. And so there's a real encouragement to say, that first year of religious life, you start to visit communities, you start to look, you say, kind of like, is my heart home here? Could I pray here? That sort of thing. You can ask those questions only to a certain extent. And at some point you got to say, I think I need to see what this looks like from the inside. And if I'm growing here, if I'm thriving here, if this is really the work that the Lord has been about in my heart in terms of the charisms and missions that he's placed in me to be his servant in the world. And so I finally got to that point of saying, okay, I still hope for a family. I still hope for a husband, but I trust that whatever you have, even if it's not what I always imagined, that it is good and beautiful. And I want to try what I think you're inviting me to, we're really different personalities. I'm like, I need to think about in community, like if we're thinking about something, I need to have probably thought about it for about 3 weeks before I actually say anything about it out loud, kind of thing. So I need a lot of time, and I need just permission to kind of think and see, and, that sort of thing. So to say to the Lord, okay, I want to try. I think this is what you're leading me to. I think there's grace to say yes. And honestly, it's humbling in a lot of ways to not as I've grown in our life, and as I've fallen more in love with the Lord and really understood more who He's made me to be, and who He is, and therefore what He's inviting me to be, it's humbling to realize how piddly of a gift I was able to offer Him on that front end of it. I would say, like, Lord, I want to give you the most wholehearted yes that I can. And looking back on that, like, okay, I'll give you a year, it's just kind of like, but the Lord can take those little yeses, and He can take where you're at. He's not in a rush. He's not worried about it. Yeah. He's not anxious. Like, we're behind schedule, people. He knows, and He knows your heart. He knows how to draw and how to provide and support, so that when you get to that point of being able to make that little tiny step, He's got the plan, and He's there with you, delighting in that little step. So the Lord took that little step of mine, and He just said, that's enough. I can work with this, and very slowly opened my heart to be able to hear more and more of His love for me, so that when I actually came to realize that He really was inviting me to be His spouse, I could receive it with greater and greater and greater awe and excitement and gratitude, in ways that I would not have been able to, even if I said, like, I'm here forever. It's not where my heart was, and the Lord knew that. So,
That's beautiful.
So,
that's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a tremendous journey to go on, and it is different for each individual. But it's still possible, and this is the reason why we do these things, to hear your own invitation in someone's story, or to hear your own story or some glimpse of it, because we're dealing with the same Lord. So even though each of us is so different, God is calling all of us to a deeper relationship with Him. That is the case no matter what else He's calling you to. And it's also not something that He's waiting 10 years or saying, in 10 years, look me up. It's more like, look up right now, every day. In fact, look up, I'm with you.